Good morning and welcome to Lyceum. I'm the Reverend Gregory Kent, Lyceum Director. So happy to have everyone here today. All the ones that are here physically, those of you watching virtually, and of course everyone spiritually, we're happy to have you. Just a reminder, if you have any questions, feel free to put them into the comment section. Those here, just raise your hand and we'll ask you to state your question. If we don't get to you during the service, we'll certainly address it afterwards. And feel free to, if you're watching afterwards, feel free to email questions. And we'll be happy to get back with you. We're going to continue talking about spiritual healing. And our teacher today is the Reverend Steve Adkins. Reverend Adkins is an ordained minister, healer, medium, and past trustee. So without further ado, the Reverend Steve Adkins.
Good morning. There is a trifold handout on the table back there if you'd like to pick one of these up on your way in or out. I'm not necessarily going to speak from this today, but it's information on the Religion of Spiritualism. Greg asked me to talk about what I feel about spiritualism. I've been a healer for probably 25 years here in the camp, as well as went overseas a couple times and practiced over in the UK. My basic feeling about spiritual healing, there's two phenomena that are attached to the spiritual religion. One is mediumship and one is healing. Mediumship demonstrates the continuity of life after death. Healing demonstrates the existence of God, a greater intelligence than ourselves that has dominion over this realm and is a benevolent intelligence because of the healing that it produces. Within that particular perspective, there's a lot of different philosophies, ideologies about how that particular aspect works. So I'm going to speak about the one that I know and that I employ in my practice. Spiritual healing is where an earthly person, i.e. a healer, connects to the other side and passes healing energies, healing intelligences to the person here by the need that they have. This healing intelligence has a purpose that it's been sent here for by the intelligence of God to work with that person and their illness. The healing medium is just what it says. It's the go-between that makes the unknown and the unseen seen, known, and usable in the physical. Within this, I find a particular philosophy of how illness is created, how illness manifests in people, and between mental and physical illness, it's the same thing. My teaching taught me that in the mother's womb, prior to conception, there's a spiritual matrix that forms by spiritual purpose, knowing that this conception is going to take place. The spiritual matrix is what the biological mass grows over during the pregnancy to birth. The spiritual matrix, and I know this is a three-dimensional thought for a fifth-dimensional type of energy, the spirit energy, but there are connecting points between the spirit and the physical existence. Particular thought, particular events weaken or strengthen these points of connection to the spirit, to the physical flesh. They in turn cause that particular point of connection to become stronger and more healthy, or weaker and more susceptible to injury. I've heard a lot of times that thought creates illness, that you think your own illness, and that's a bit naive of a statement, but it is a correct statement. The example that I'll give is I have a chart that's been developed over 200 years of spiritual healing, and it correlates thought to these connection points within the body, and continual issues with tribal, group, or personal relationships, continual events with that of a negative nature weaken that connection. That connecting point is the back, the legs, and the feet. If you continually have difficulty with relationships, either group or personal, it weakens those areas of the body. And let's say you step off your front step 1,000 times before it's weakened and have no issues. Once it becomes weakened, you step off that front step, you twist your ankle, you twist your back. It creates a weakness in that area. You don't think that you want your back or leg or foot to be hurt, but it creates a disharmony between the physical and the spiritual relationship at that particular point. So when I do a healing, I do a period of diagnosis with the person through this chart, give them the ability to become engaged in their own healing, and allow them to be more of a participant than just a victim of their own illness. The other side of that coin is, as you begin to become engaged in your own healing activities and your own healing event, you begin to employ the personal reserves of your own body. The human body has a tremendous healing ability of its own, just in the biological sense, that has nothing to do with spiritual energy. And the example I'll give you, this is part of my journey with it, is back when I was about 17 or 18. I was a pure hedonist, a hellraiser, a drinker, and just wanted to exist in life like that. I was working at Disney World, the first phase in the 70s. That gives you a little idea how old I am. And I had this little finger cut completely off and clean through both joints. And there were just little pieces of skin holding it together, so I tied it together with a T-shirt and got hauled to Orlando a couple hours later. And the doctor wanted permission to finish amputating those little pieces of skin that were holding it together. That's all that was there, just these little shreds of skin. And I said, I'm not going to give you that permission. He says, the ball of the joint's completely destroyed. That never regrows. I've been a surgeon for 40 years, and I guarantee you that doesn't regrow. And I said, Doc, you put it back together, and you let me worry about how it's going to heal. So back then there was no microsurgery, no ability to do blood vessel reconnections or nerve reconnections or anything. So he stuck a rod through the middle of it, stuck it back together, and stitched the outside of it together. About a month later, I went back in for a follow-up, and he says, I'm seeing a miracle perform before my eyes. And you could see the phantom image of a ball of a joint, and both joints starting to regrow. And I said, no, Doc, you're just witnessing Adkins stubbornness, that's all. I'm not losing that finger. And I was employing my own body's biological ability to heal itself, just through pure being convinced that I was not going to lose that finger. The other example I'll give you of that is back in 2017, 2016, a little closer to today. I've been riding motorcycles since I was about 15, and I always wear protective equipment, and I'm usually pretty cautious. I got in a horrendous motorcycle wreck, had a traumatic brain injury, broke my shoulder, broke both my ribs, and the doctor was telling everybody that came, my boss, my wife, my friends, my family, everybody, he's not coming out for a long time, and when he does, he's never going to be the same person again. Well, I came out 2.5 weeks later just as ornery and stubborn as I am now. And he was very surprised at that. And again, I did a combination of self-healing and my own knowledge of spiritual healing to bring that about. And that's just knowing these different principles and trying to apply them. Now, if I get mad at somebody and stub my toe or bump my elbow or something, spiritual healing doesn't work with that. I can't seem to. It only works when I'm really in extreme difficulty. And at almost being 70 years old, I'm still quite healthy. I just recovered. I fell off my roof about 10 weeks ago and fractured my spine and was in a back brace till about a week ago. And today I'm back with no ill effects from it. I'm tearing my motorcycle apart, working with my horses. So it's just a matter of attitude. And that's what I tell people. I say, if I quit injuring myself, I'd be in pretty good health. So. But again, there's the other side of that is that I exercise, I watch my diet, I take care of my thoughts. I do my own maintenance with what I'm supposed to do. God's not going to reach down and touch you and make you perfectly healthy and whole of body if you're a nasty person, if you don't believe in these kinds of things. Belief is what carries this stuff, and personal responsibility of engaging and doing your part. Within spiritual healing, as I said before, God sends an emissary to all healing issues, whether it's a group of people, whether it's an individual. There's an emissary sent, whether you believe in angels, spirit guides, nature spirits, whatever you believe in. God gives one of those a mission to come to you and work with you in your illness, whether it's emotional or personal or physical. The healing person, a trained healing instrument, senses that being, connects to it, and connects it to the person, makes the handshake so that that healing continues beyond the moment of the healing meeting with the healer. That purpose, that healing intelligence has a purpose for that person and that illness. You as the healer should never put your thoughts into there about what you want done, because you don't have a clue what the universal purpose of that spirit and that person is as the healing instrument. And I'll give you a minor example of that. Like I said, I've been doing healings for almost 30 years now in the camp, and I've dealt with people with every kind of malady, inoperable cancers, suicide intentions, everything under the sun. This one man and wife came to me quite a while ago, and he had had an operation on the front of his head and to relieve pressure, and he started exhibiting signs of dementia. And his wife was very upset because he had started this huge pharmaceutical business that all the family belonged to, everybody was involved in, and he refused to give up control of it because he kept forgetting what he was doing. He couldn't remember where he put keys. He couldn't remember to do the important things that needed to be done, but he refused to give up control of the organization and was starting to run it into the ground. So she brought him to me to get his head fixed. And I started working with him, and my inspiration was to work with her too individually. And what happened, rather than me wanting him to get his memory back, I continued to work with the spiritual purpose. And what happened is they both fell back in love with each other, and he felt safe enough to step back and allow control of the organization to go to somebody else. So the purpose of that healing was for them to fall back in love, not for him to regain his memory. There's always a higher spiritual purpose with every healing event that you're involved in, whether you're a mother working with your child, whether you're a professional spiritual healing person like myself. There's a higher purpose than what you want and what you desire with what you're working with, and you must not interfere with that purpose. As I've worked down the road, I've seen a lot of people. I worked with a woman who had terminal cancer, and it was wrapped all around her intestines, and they couldn't get it out. So I started working with her, and first I worked at a distance, because there's distance healing and there's in-person healing. Some relief can be given for distance healing, and others people have to be physically present. The illness isn't the constant, and neither is the person. It varies from person to person. So if somebody's at a distance, I usually try to send them distance healing first. And she started having positive results. And of course, I always caution them. I say, don't think that you're getting better. Let the doctor tell you you're getting better. We are working companionship with doctors in the healing industry, not in opposition to it. So I encouraged her to let the doctor tell her when she was getting better. And he did. He told her it was going into remission. So her and her family came down here. They were way up in Vermont somewhere. And I did more in-person healing with her about once or twice a week for about 3 or 4 weeks. And it went completely away where it couldn't even be detected. During the consultation that I did with her, I was impressed to tell her she smoked like a chimney. And I said, your body has gotten to the point to where it completely is having a really adverse reaction to tobacco. I said, I'm not telling you that tobacco is bad for everybody in the world, but I'm telling you that tobacco is bad for you. And you need to stop smoking if you expect this thing to stay in remission. Well, she goes back up north, tells everybody what a great healing she got down here, and kept smoking and kept her same lifestyle. And within 6 months, the cancer didn't come back in exactly the same place, but it was the same type in a different place. So there's personal responsibility. The Spirit can remove this illness in an instantaneous fashion or in a gradual fashion over a period of time, but unless you as the individual do your part, it will re-manifest, because it's manifested by your thoughts, by your actions, and some people would say by your karma. I get a lot of questions about you have to have somebody's permission to send them distance healing. Well, how would you ever send healing to a child? How would you ever send healing to somebody in a coma? You know, that really isn't true. I don't find that to be true. I don't find it to be an ethical approach at all to healing. Somebody has to ask for it. Now, when somebody comes to you for a healing, they do have to be involved and be engaged with it. My walk with healing, like I said, has been a mixed bag of things with my own health. Back and forth, states of mind, states of being. I can look back over my life where there were high points and low points with it, points of where I got really disgusted with it and disappointed with it. Because sometimes I remember one time I did a reading for my mom and her husband, my stepdad, and I didn't see anything wrong with it. I did healings on him. I didn't sense anything wrong with it. 6 months later, he's diagnosed with pancreatic terminal inoperable cancer, and she had a stroke that paralyzed the whole right side of her body. So I got a little upset about that, you know, and I took it real personal. I forgot my training. I forgot my theory. I forgot the spiritual philosophy of the higher purpose of everything within life. And I completely stopped doing everything for teaching classes, doing professional healing, doing mediumship, anything. I was very disappointed with it. But I kept meditating, because my meditation techniques come from a time before I was in spiritualism. In the 70s, I was involved in a very structured type of teaching with Kundalini Yoga taught by the Sikhs, and I was using it to come out of drug addiction, so it was pretty serious with me. And they taught us meditation, deep meditation, and philosophy of their particular attitude of the Spirit. So I kept meditating, even though I wasn't practicing spiritualism. And it came to me one morning in the meditation when I asked that question, why, after quite a few months, and it said that spiritual gifts, mediumship, healing, and anything associated with it are not to help people avoid the circumstances of their life. They're to give them a broader understanding of them and move them forward with their spiritual purpose by that broader understanding of them. And I said, you know, I can take that. So I got re-engaged again. So as a healer and a medium, I'm still a human being. I still struggle with daily things. I don't have an automatic buy anything. And like I told you about the motorcycle wreck and the back injury, you still have to do your part. You can't say, oh, I've been such a good person and I've helped so many people, just make me well, and not do anything. Personal responsibility and engagement with spiritual thought is a mandatory every day, a daily purpose that you have to do. As I said before, I'm speaking primarily about my belief about spiritualist healing. That doesn't mean that I think that that's the only kind of healing. All types of healing, regardless of the modality, are expressions of the same spiritual energy of God. God loves everybody regardless of what their particular belief is. They're all just different dances to the same music. One's not better than the other. It depends on the practitioner as to how well the particular modality works, not the modality itself. The ritual, the practice of the ritual really does not make it better. You have to have that inner guidance, that inner focus of things. Harry Edwards, who I took a lot of training from, was I didn't get involved in spiritual healing for a long time because I didn't like what I was watching, what I was being taught. And then I got into the Harry Edwards Healing Sanctuary philosophy from the United Kingdom. He's passed away in the 70s, but he took spiritual healing and brought it to being the profession that it is today. Today you see spiritual healers in hospitals right next to doctors because of his practices and the ethics that he taught. And what he taught was that spiritual healing is something that can be practiced by anyone, and that ritual and religion should be removed completely from it. And his hope was that mothers would be able to heal their children, that loved ones could heal each other. And he used to do demonstrations on stage where he would take people up there, do public healings, like you see public demonstrations that we do of mediumship, and he would sit there and he'd massage crippled limbs and they would straighten out. He would work with people of all sorts of physical maladies and in the public. Now, as with any public demonstration of spiritual gifts, nothing is constant and nothing is guaranteed. He had times where nothing would happen with him. So again, spirit determines the purpose. Spirit determines the outcome. I was asked one time, somebody said, when you do healing on somebody, aren't you helping them avoid the karma of their life? I said, well, most people's idea of karma is a bit naive. It's not an encompassing belief system. I was taught some of that with the Sikhs that were teaching me the Kundalini Yoga. And it's more a verb than it is a noun. It's a living energy within everything that moves, that drives, that evolves. It's not something that if I hit you in a past life, then I have to be hit in this life by you back to make it even. It's a bit naive about that. Karma, I think that we're living in a life, in an existence of instant karma now. I think that you don't get away with much nowadays, in case you hadn't noticed. Whatever happens, whatever you do, comes right back around to be dealt with again in pretty short order. It doesn't go away or doesn't somehow get glossed over and not have to be faced. So within that question about am I helping people avoid their karma, spiritual healing makes people's minds evolve. It expands their awareness of who they are during the healing process. So karma's purpose is to do the same thing, to make people's mind expand beyond what it is and give them a greater awareness of that which is around them. So when you do a spiritual healing, you are aiding the karma, not jumping around it. And the example yes.
Do you think people who don't have a spiritual concept get healed?
I'll answer that in a second. Let me finish this thought and I'll answer you first. I had a man come to me one time, and not too long ago, for a healing, and he drove up in his brand new Mercedes, really nice clothes, in his mid-30s, obviously very successful. And he sits down at the table across from me, and like I said, I do an interview process. And he looks at me, and I said, well, what are you here for today? And he says, I've got this god-awful pain in my stomach that I've had for several years. No health official of any kind's ever been able to help me with it. Every time I eat food, I feel like I've been punched in the stomach, and you're my last hope. If you can't help me, I'm going to go home and commit suicide. And it was just as calm as I just said it. It wasn't this plea like, please help me. He just said it just as a matter of fact as can be. And so of course, I can't be startled or show any reaction. I have to be the hope. I can't be the one that holds his hand and cries with him. And I said, well, I don't think it's going to come to that, so let's go ahead and continue to talk about what's going on. So I did my interview with him, used that chart I spoke about that I have that has been developed over 200 years of spiritual healing. And at the end of it, he did have relief from his stomach problem. And he went off, and he called me back about 2 weeks later So obviously he didn't go home and commit suicide. And he says, I found another doctor. And what it did was it expanded his mind during that healing to allow him to see more potentials that were there for him than what he had before the healing. So healing is a very encompassing thing. It doesn't just remove the physical ailment. It expands that person's awareness. It opens their mind to greater potentials about what they're going through, the opportunities to get that healing. It's not just fixing them immediately. And some people are just adamantly deny that anything happens to them. I had a woman come to me over here when I was in Brigham Hall, and she comes up. She couldn't even get up the steps. She was out of wind every 2 or 3 steps. So she comes up and sits down, goes. I said, well, what are you here for today? I'm here because my friend told me to come here. I don't really know why I'm here. I said, well, let's go ahead and talk about the ailments you have. So we did. I did the healing. She gets up and goes, I didn't feel too much. Goes right down the steps, straight up the street to the hotel without even pausing. And I've had where I was called to people's houses, and there was a whole bunch of Orthodox people outside. The wife had told them that I was coming to work on this one guy that was partially paralyzed, and he made them let me in. They were going to block me from coming into the house. And I did the healing on them, and they said, do you mind if we do our part? And I said, no, please do. I don't care who gets credit for the healing as long as the person has relief. So they came in and put their holy books all over them and started praying for them after I did the healing, which is fine. All of this helps. So you run into quite an event of things, and your mind as a healer is expanded also. So, questions, I guess. Johnny had just asked a question about if people don't have a spiritual belief. Belief is not a cornerstone, that has nothing to do with the dynamics of spiritual healing. That's more what they call faith healing. And it works, it has its place within the healing without a doubt. But spiritual healing works on the science of healing, on the energy of God being transmitted to that person. It doesn't matter if they believe they're going to get healed. It doesn't matter if they believe that there's a God. My belief is what comes in at that play to make that connection. It's just like the electricity in the wall. It doesn't matter if you believe it's there or not. If you make the right connection to it, you're going to know it's there. And it's the same way with spiritual healing. It works on spiritual science, not on individual belief of things. The only thing that belief works with is my belief of what I do, and the individual's expanded awareness of their life around them to bring in that inspiration on a daily basis to them to expand their own understanding of where they're at. I can't make somebody believe something they don't believe. I can't make somebody come to an awareness that they don't have. It's all an internal journey and a personal choice that I try not to interfere with. So
But I think it's up to God, and I don't think you have to motivate him or spark him up by asking him. I think he's going to fix you, heal you, save you anyway. Even if you ask him or don't ask him. If you get hands-on healers, I think he's going to heal you if he wants to anyway, even if you don't get hands-on healing. You understand what I'm saying? I think things are going to flow the way they're supposed to flow. I don't see where modality of any sort can instigate God to do something that he's going to do anyway. Now, but I do believe in faith, and I do believe in asking him, and I do believe he gets a kick out when people ask him stuff. Like, help me, heal me, fix my mother, you know what I mean? Of course, he probably perks up when he hears that, because he wants us to be with him. He wants us to believe in him. This is where faith is from. So, but I think, like my Aunt May, who was a devout Christian, she died at the age of 34 when she had cancer. She prayed to God till her last day. You know what I'm saying? Didn't matter.
Some things you won't know until you go to the other side. There's just
Absolutely.
an explanation for nothing, and
Absolutely.
you work quite well within your own belief system, and nobody should ever tell you that it's wrong or anything like that. If it works for you,
Yeah.
that's what God and you have come to agree on, how you view your life.
Well,
And as you work with that potential, you will realize new things, cast away old things, and move at your own pace through that own awareness is what will happen with you. And that's, like I said, I was a hedonist at 17, but I knew I was a hedonist and hellraiser, and I didn't try to make excuses for it. So God was able to work with me in that perspective and show me things as long as I was honest with myself. And that's all you can be, is honest with yourself and have things revealed to you through that connection. Anybody else have a question or comment? Yes.
Can I just ask, can you repeat the phrase you just mentioned about as long as you and God are in agreement? What followed? As long as you're in agreement of what works for you. What was that short statement you made? Do you remember?
God
That
can
really resonated with me.
God can work with you as long as you're honest about yourself and who you are. Because if you're not avoiding what you are or making excuses for what you are, it doesn't matter what you are, God and inspiration can work with you, because what's presented to you, you take into a conscious thought. You look at it just as honestly as you look at yourself. So as long as you are honest about who you are and what you are, not making excuses for it, God will work within you in that perspective. And that's what happened to me. Every little bit of the way, I didn't suddenly stop being like that overnight. It's one decision at a time. And I don't realize how much I've changed over the years. I run into people from 20 or 30 years ago occasionally, because I grew up around in Florida. And they'll look at me and they'll go, "You can't possibly be that same person. You're way too responsible today." So you don't realize the changes you've made over the years. You don't realize the substantial steps you've made from who you were, because you always think, if you're honest with yourself, you always think you're who you are every moment of every day. And as long as you have that honesty, you can be moved beyond what's going on. Sometimes I had deaths of loved ones, there's some cruelty in the world today. Those are hard things to get by, you know. Cruelty to animals, cruelty to people. Those things are just hard to understand, but believe it or not, they're all within the main plan that's going on for everybody to move through. You're welcome. Any other questions or comments? Well, there is these trifold brochures, they're blue, back there on the table, about spiritualism and the different principles of it. I thank you all for being here today and giving me of your time. I know that the rain's a little bit difficult, but the thing about the rain is I've got pastures with horses in it, plus it's our drinking water here in Florida for the future, so don't ever naysay the rain. Be glad it's here. Thank you for being here today.
Thank you, Reverend Adkins. Really appreciate you coming in today. Remember, those who are online, our next service does start at 10:30. Everyone here, we're hoping you'll stay also. We do have a prosperity bowl in the back if you'd like to donate at any time. We also have an online donation if you'd like to, you know, every dollar, every $5 bill counts. They all add up. So whatever you can afford, if you can afford, or you can certainly donate your talents. One way or the other, we all come out ahead. But thank you for being part of the Lyceum today, and we will see you next week. I will be your teacher, and we'll finish up on spiritual healing. Thank you, and have a great day.